Welcome everyone. This is our second workshop in our workshop 2022 workshop series supporting low-income Vermonters in energy efficiency and weatherization. For folks who don't know me, I'm Becca Custer. I'm the AmeriCorps member and community energy coordinator at the Vermont Natural Resources Council, and we help to coordinate VECAN along with our partners, including Efficiency Vermont. So again, thanks for joining this workshop. I'm going to just quickly turn it over to our presenters, but I will just say we're going to save the questions for the end. We'll be monitoring the chat, and if there's anything we can answer in the moment, we will, but please put your questions in the chat and we'll get to them at the end. Really grateful to have our presenters here today, the first being Lauren Wentz from Efficiency Vermont, and I'll just turn it over to you. Thank you.
Great, fabulous. Thank you, Becca. Someone, if give me a thumbs up that I am being heard just fine and everyone can see my screen. Thank you. Great. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Tim and I, as well as Michelle, our colleague, we're really happy to be with you all today to talk about addressing energy burden for low-income Vermonters and kind of tip to tail. What does that mean? How and in what role does Efficiency Vermont serve in that capacity? And then what are some resources through Efficiency Vermont and elsewhere that we can connect you all with to deliver really good services and meaningful impacts to customers who are in greatest need throughout our state. So want to kick us off and there's me one moment. All right, so quick review of what our agenda will be today. And a brief overview talking about the landscape of low income and low income customers, our neighbors, our community members across our state. A deep dive into energy burden as a concept and what it practically means. A kind of an overview of Efficiency Vermont's programs that look to address this, some adjacent services, and then wrapping up with, as I mentioned before, some resources from Efficiency Vermont for energy committees to be able to use. We'll be joined later on about midway through with Jeff Wilcox, who is the program administrator for weatherization services within the Office of Economic Opportunity. So he'll be hopping on a bit later. Hopefully his timing works out. He's squeezed a little bit with another meeting, but we're really looking forward to him joining us as well. And then Michelle is going to cap us off at the very end. As Becca mentioned, we're going to aim, if possible, to save questions and certainly robust discussion till the end. But please don't hesitate to drop anything in the chat. And certainly if there's a technical difficulty, someone kind of give a hands up and let me know if things go awry. All right, so certainly know that many of you are familiar with Efficiency Vermont, but just a quick brief overview of what we do as an organization and as the energy efficiency utility in the state. We provide direct support through incentives, training, and technical advice. We really support and direct market transformation through supply chain engagement. And then we also partner with energy service providers to deliver services, rebates, incentives, what have you, to customers directly. So this is what Efficiency Vermont does overall for all sorts of customers, residential, business, industrial customers, what have you. But today we're going to be, of course, focusing on low-income residential customers. And so as we kind of go forward in today's workshop, kind of bringing that lens to how does the work that Efficiency Vermont does for low-income customers to address energy burden, to deliver energy efficiency services, how does that have to look differently given the unique challenges of this customer market and segment? So we're going to now dive into the low-income landscape within the state of Vermont. So what does that look like? This is a chart off of VHFA's housingdata.org website. If folks haven't taken a look at this website before, I highly recommend it. It's a wealth of information and data visualizations on all sorts of cross-cutting data, not just specific to income strata and diversification, but all other factors as well. So what are we looking at here? We're looking at the percentage of households. These are not individuals, but the percentage of households in the state of Vermont, statewide, who are in different income brackets. So 0 to 30%, 30 to 50, 50 to 80, 80 to 100, and above 100. HUD within the federal government defines anybody as 80% or lower as low income. From 0 to 30%, it's considered extremely low income, 30 to 50%, very low income, 50 to 80%, low income, 80 to 120 actually is considered moderate income, and then above 120 is considered high income. So what does this look like in terms of the percentages across the state? So 33% of Vermont homeowner households are low income. And when it comes to the renter population, it's significantly higher, it's 78%. So these present real challenges in terms of the portion of our communities, of our cities, of our neighborhoods, of our state, where folks are struggling and are facing a host of burdens, of which energy is one of them. I wish today that we had the time to dive into how the renter population and this extreme proportion of the renter population that is low income presents additional opportunities as well as additional challenges. But for the most part today, we're going to be focusing on through the lens of low-income homeowners. Certainly, Tim and I would welcome ongoing conversation, engagement, and Michelle as well, on the unique services that Efficiency Vermont and others offer renters. But for today, we're going to be primarily focusing on homeowners. So what does this look like at the county level? So here is, I know this is a lot to digest, but here is a list of the percentage of each county that is low income. You can kind of see how overall that maps to that 33%. There are some variations though. There are some that are lower in Chittenden County, certainly, and there are some that are quite high, certainly including Essex as well as Orleans. So I think what I want to point out here by looking at how this varies per county, but also what the actual number represents is that there are other factors that are really worthwhile to consider, and so are certainly important to consider in understanding the needs, the value propositions of customers engaging with energy efficiency services, as well as other services that can be of help and value. And what might those be? It's interesting to think about what are the communities that might have the highest transportation costs for folks who might have to travel to their work, and how those might be added costs as we think about folks who already have low wages or salaries at a household level. What are some of the other compounding burdens? Proximity to healthcare, proximity to food access, grocery stores. All of these things are factors that we kind of want to be considering, if not at the forefront, in the background of our minds today. So moving on to energy burden deep dive. What Tim and I want to give is a kind of an overview as well as in the weeds perspective of what energy burden is today. Some of you might be familiar with the concept. Some of you might be familiar with it kind of in practice. And hopefully this is a bit of a level setting overall. So what is energy burden? It's actually a percentage and it's a calculation. And how do we get to that calculation? We take a household or an individual's total energy spending, we divide that by household income, and we get to total energy burden, which is represented as a percentage. What's really interesting is that there are different organizations or different entities include different things within what constitutes energy spending. And household income certainly can sometimes be a little bit left up to interpretation, which can be a tricky thing in helping to pinpoint someone's energy burden. But at the end of the day, we want to focus broadly for now on energy spending. What is one's utility bills, right? What is, and that, for example, somebody could say, well, my water bill is a utility bill, right? Or I heat with wood. So how does that factor in? There are, in a general concept though, thinking about the total amount someone is spending on their energy consumption for their home in a year divided by their household income to get to the percentage energy burden. Efficiency Vermont in 2020 revised a energy burden report that it had released a number of years prior. It's accessible on our website. Happy to pass along the link after today if that'd be helpful. But Efficiency Vermont looks at these three sources of energy spending, or these three individual buckets in the colored circles for what constitutes energy, overall energy spending. So there's transportation costs. Then there is the cost for heating, and that's whatever source of heating a home uses. And then there are electricity costs, and then that gets to kind of the total energy burden. But what's interesting is how do we level set what is considered high energy burden, what's considered moderate, what's considered affordable, what's considered insurmountable. is this a matter of subjectivity or objectivity, right? And how do we kind of compare? And so what's interesting is that there's actually a national standard, and the national standard is 6%. And so if anybody's energy burden is in excess of 6%, it means they're energy burden. How do we get to 6%? It may sound somewhat random, and it's actually a straight calculation. HUD defines that any household that pays more than 30% of its income on housing is cost burdened. And then there's a further standard or definition within that that says that energy costs shouldn't take up more than 20% of housing costs. So 20% of 30% equals 6%. And what HUD, as well as many other federal and other national entities, have indicated is that when somebody's energy costs take up more than 6% of their household income, typically folks are unable to afford other necessities, such as food, such as healthcare, such as education costs, such as reliable transportation, all of those things. So when we start to look at energy burden, I'm going to be using today 6% as kind of that threshold of what is untenable. And what's interesting as we go forward in just a bit is looking at how does that actually pan out with where Vermont is regionally in the United States, as well as community to community within the state. So kind of zooming out a little bit, how does energy burden play out differently for different groups, different demographic groups? And this is a graphic from ACEEE. They also put out a paper in 2020 called How High Are Household Energy Burdens? Really recommended as a fantastic read. But essentially what this graphic shows is that when we look deeper at communities and different groups of people, we find that there are further disparities of energy burden depending on how and on who we're looking at and how we're looking to support. So for example, energy burden is 45% higher in Black households than in non-Hispanic white households. The same type of increase holds true with Native American households, with Latino and Latinx households, in manufactured homes as well. And so when we try to think about what are the different ways and different circumstances that further increase one's energy burden and then further increase the disparity between what is considered affordable and attainable, despite the demographics within our state predominantly, these things play a part and are really critical to look at as well. So how do we size up, so to speak, across the United States? So this graphic is also from ACEEE's paper. What this shows in purple are the median energy burden by region. So that's just, median. And then the red figures show the same number, the same kind of cut, but specifically for low income. So what my eye is drawn to here is that the median energy burden for New England is not tremendously different than the rest of the country. There are some variations certainly, but not tremendously different. The Pacific Northwest regionally is certainly doing better on a median level. However, when we start to look at the median low income energy burden by region, New England is very high, it's the highest. And so how can we together, how can Efficiency Vermont's programs help to address that? So this graphic right here is taken from Efficiency Vermont's Energy Burden Report. And forgive me, I think earlier I said that it was released in 2020, it was published in 2019. This is looking at the total energy burden. Again, Efficiency Vermont includes transportation costs in that. But the total energy burden by town, and so where you see blue, you're looking at the lowest energy burden, average energy burden, and the darkest orange, you're looking at the highest energy burden. And if the numbers are a little bit hard to see, highest is an average of over 17% energy burden. And if on the blue side, the lowest average energy burden is just under 7%. What's interesting is that this graph does not slice and dice low income within this. This is by town, the average. And so the question, or kind of what I want to offer, is that within every county, within every pocket of every town, There are customers, neighbors, community members who, despite the town average, are experiencing proportionally higher energy burdens than this map even represents, because this map represents averages. And so what does that look like kind of within the low-income community? So in the state of Vermont, this is a graph that was produced by the DOE. They have what's called their low-income energy affordability data tool, their LEAD tool. Super cool tool, very interactive, highly recommend going on. It's open to the public. But this is specifically in the state of Vermont, the average energy burden for low-income customers. So each bar that you're seeing here starting on the left is for those who are between 0 and 30% AMI, or area median income, and those who are between 30 and 60%, and then 60 and 80%. So all people that you see represented here for the state of Vermont are considered low income. And what we're looking at is the total average energy burden for those who are between 0 and 30% AMI, which HUD defines as extremely low income. Their average energy burden total is 33%. For those who are 30 to 60% AMI, 13%. And for those who are 60 to 80%, total being 8%. The average energy burden for the state of Vermont as a whole is roughly 4%. So when we're looking at orders of magnitude greater, this really hits it home. So what I want to do now is, not sure if in advance of today's workshop, folks were able to see kind of a question that was put out to try to estimate your, or bring with you, even if it's scribbled on the back of a napkin, your household's monthly income, and then also your household's monthly energy bills. But we're going to go through an exercise right now, a little activity. And so we're going to take some time, and hopefully on my end, technology-wise, this goes smoothly. So the first ask is if you could grab a piece of paper and a pen, if you have one handy. And with that, the first question is to estimate your household's monthly income. So this is take-home pay. And rough estimate. No need to look up on your computer, quickly logging into your bank account to see what's deposited, or looking back at your filing cabinet, just an estimate. But what I do want you to do is include any member in your household above the age of 18 who brings in income, and for folks who live full-time in your home. So the first number to write down is your household's monthly income, and then multiply that number by 12, just to estimate your household's annual income. I'll give a moment for folks to do that. All right. The next thing to do is to estimate your household's monthly energy bills. So this could be your heating bill, your electric bill. If you are on electric resistance heat, of course, that's one and the same. But your total monthly energy bills estimate. Now, there are, of course, fluctuations given where we live about what a monthly energy bill or the total would be in the winter months versus kind of the hot weather months. But either use an average or kind of do the quick math yourself to tally up what your annual estimate for your energy costs would be. All right. And if you're still calculating or tallying that up, no worries. We're not going to lose time here. But what I want you to do then is follow this equation. So what this is getting at is estimating your household's energy burden. So you're going to divide your annual energy costs by your household income. So for example, if I had calculated that my household's average annual energy costs are $2,222, and if my household's month or annual income is $75,000, I divide that and then multiply by 100 to get my energy burden.
Lauren, I think I know the answer to this question, but the question in the chat is, should people include their transportation costs?
Great question. For the time being, you can omit that. Great. Thanks, Michelle. All right. I'm going to move on to the next slide. But if you're still calculating, if you're not, we can certainly still catch up. So the next thing I want folks to do is on your computer in a separate window or on your smartphone, if you have one, please go to this website, www.menti.com, and then enter the following code that you see there. And Michelle, if you might be able to give me a heads up if you log in and we look on track.
I am in, and I'm just copying the code into the chat so that people have it in case you move forward.
Great, thank you. All right. Great, I see people entering their energy burden already. Fantastic. We'll leave this open for a minute or two.
How would you like us to round, like round up or down by the decimal point?
Great question. If you're 0.6 and above, feel free to round up. If you're 0.5 and below, feel free to round down.
Wonderful, thank you.
Sure.
You know, nothing's showing up on this slide quite yet, correct, Lauren?
Oh, thank you, Michelle.
Yep. I don't know if you have to refresh or anything.
That's a great question.
There you go.
Woohoo! All right. Oh, sorry, folks. You hold on one moment.
We're just seeing your cool cat of a child.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to advance us. Sorry about that. I did warn that technical difficulties may abound. All right. We're back at it. Great. I'm going to leave this open for a minute longer. All right. Great. Thank you for those who are, let's see here. Here we go, a little bit of an update. Great. Thank you all for those who are participating. I should have mentioned at the start, this is challenge by choice. So certainly feel free to participate and add your percent energy burden as calculated, estimated before we shift. All right, so what I want to show here is that the trend lines show that that overall there is a range of folks in terms of how they've expressed what their household energy burden is. We certainly have folks who are in our group today whose energy burden is certainly at or even well below the statewide average. There are folks who have very high energy burdens, and Efficiency Vermont is here to help you. But in all seriousness, I think what's really important to recognize here is that there is a diversity, but the vast majority of those of us who are talking about this very challenge and issue and opportunity today, by and large, are folks who do not experience what's considered high energy burden. And so as we are talking to community members, as we're talking to folks in our neighborhoods, customers, what have you, recognizing the place from which one might sit, and then recognizing the needs, the values, the additional burdens that other folks are experiencing, particularly those who are low income and where their energy burden might fall. So we have one more question on.
Yeah, we have.
Go ahead. Sorry, Tim.
Lauren, I just wanted to say we have 75% of participants are energy burden is 5% or less.
Great. Thank you for doing that calculation, Tim. All right. So I'm going to attempt now to get to our second question of today. Bear with me one moment. All right. All right. All right. So now, if Becca or Tim, if you could give me a, there we go. Thumbs up that you can see this next question. So the question is, imagine you are severely housing cost burdened. Rank in order your willingness to forego, cancel, or leave unpaid the following monthly costs. So you should be able to have a slide bar for each of those things listed. And when you think about education costs, the one thing I did mean to include, but recognize that I forgot to include, education costs should also be what, as you think about that, inclusive of childcare costs. Be that attending preschool, daycare, what have you, if that's something you currently have to pay for or could imagine having to pay for. Great. Well, we'll leave this open for another minute or two as you folks consider. I'm seeing we have about 39 folks who have responded so far, and I know that about 45 or so responded to the prior question. So I'll leave it open for a little bit longer as folks consider.
I'll just call out some of the interesting comments coming in.
By all means, yeah.
This is making people uncomfortable, which I think may be part of it. And that some of these people don't have some of these things. So they might be ranking it differently. And that in general, I really appreciate Jeff Ford's comment earlier that since it's a meeting of energy committees and energy-minded folks, we are early adopters of efficiency measures, which also influences our
Mm.
energy burden.
Yep, totally fair. Thank you.
And Paul, I would agree, this is uncomfortable. I knew it was coming, and I even felt uncomfortable doing it.
Yeah. So as folks, I see we're about at the 45 kind of responses. So it is uncomfortable. Agreed wholeheartedly. And I think what's interesting is that the fixed, or in not all cases, as someone pointed out, Michelle, that you relayed, but in most cases, these are kind of reoccurring fixed costs in household lives. Some folks may or may not have a car. Some folks may or may not have prescription medication. Some folks may not currently bear any tuition costs. But as a whole, these are common expenditures that many households in the state of Vermont, certainly nationally, have on a monthly basis. And technically, if these are all line items in monthly expenses, none necessarily can go unpaid. None necessarily can afford to go into arrears, or which means basically accrual of unpaid bills, right? In kind of utility bill speak. Certainly, there were eviction moratoriums and whatnot, shut-off moratoriums during COVID for renters. But by and large, if one's mortgage and rent goes unpaid, someone becomes unhoused. So the challenge for a low-income household who also has a high energy burden is if the bills are unaffordable, where do you start? And what Efficiency Vermont really seeks to do through its programming, through its energy efficiency programming that looks to reduce consumption, use of energy through energy efficient products and reduce greenhouse gas emissions for Vermonters, is helping to address some of these bigger picture challenges at the same time, using energy efficiency as the mechanism to do so. Recognizing that the range of challenges and burdens, particularly that low-income customers experience, are tremendous. And what role can we play in helping to address some of that through energy efficiency? So what we're going to talk about now is Efficiency Vermont's programs. So broadly speaking, when folks naturally are talking about energy burden and what to do about it and how you can impact it, there are considered three ways it's possible to address it. One is that you can change rates. So those are literally the rates that you're paying for your energy, gas, electricity, what have you. You can increase one's wealth, essentially pay them more for the job they're doing or have another job that pays more, or you can reduce costs. So Energy Efficiency Vermont has control over and can actually impact realistically one of those, which is to reduce costs. We can, and we'll get to this a little bit in just a bit, around increasing wealth in some small ways. But generally speaking, Efficiency Vermont's programs through energy efficiency look to reduce costs as a means and mechanism for addressing energy burden. So what I want to talk about quickly is Efficiency Vermont's portfolio of our low-income programs, and then Tim and I are going to take a bit of a deeper dive into each of them individually. So we have a range of programs spanning from kind of least comprehensive to most comprehensive. And then from an Efficiency Vermont kind of administering those programs perspective, also programs that have kind of the least project cost average to EVT to provide customers to the most project cost average. And the reason why I'm kind of relaying it in these terms are because Efficiency Vermont looks to serve the most quantity of low-income customers we can on an annual basis, but recognizing that we need to do so in a way that is diversified. And part of that comes down to how much does it cost Efficiency Vermont to deliver that service, that depth of service. And so a quick history lesson. In 2009, we launched our Target High Use program. And this was kind of our standard bearer program for many, many years that we provide in partnership with the state's weatherization agencies, the 5 of them. In 2019, we brought online what we call the Appliance Replacement Voucher program. And then in 2021, we brought on 2 additional programs, Target High Use Light, which is literally a lighter touch version of Target High Use, and also our Energy Savings Kit program. So these 4 programs make up our portfolio of low-income programs overall. But kind of how does that map and what does it actually look like and mean? And so this is a chart that basically shows what we call kind of like the qualification for how somebody qualifies for any one of those programs over the other. So essentially, we have these 4 programs, and depending on one's energy impact, which is basically a cross between one's energy use on a monthly or annual basis and their energy burden, someone would qualify for a low, moderate, or high impact program. So the kind of all the way in the bottom, so to speak, at the bottom left corner, the less comprehensive program, if your energy impact is low, it means that you have low energy use and also low energy burden. But the top part, high energy use and high energy burden. So what this graphic is hopefully conveying is that the range of programs that Efficiency Vermont offers to low-income customers is designed to meet customers' needs where they're at and match them up with a program and qualify for their program that most addresses their needs. And we're defining and using needs as in what is their what is their energy use, specifically electric use, and also what is their energy burden. With the limited resources and budget that Efficiency Vermont does have, we do need to create a methodology for how a customer qualifies for one program or another. And we've created that in a way that customer support at Efficiency Vermont qualifies customers by phone, first qualifies if they're low income or not, and then determines which of these 4 programs they qualify for after assessing their annual electric costs, usage and costs, and then also what they're calculating what their energy burden is. One of the really valuable parts about having a methodology like that to qualify customers for any one of these 4 programs is around it being consistent, customer to customer, equitable, and easily modified if necessary, kind of year over year or every performance period as Efficiency Vermont kind of addresses what its goals are from a big picture perspective. So now we're going to transfer over to kind of a deep dive on what these programs are. And so Tim, I'm going to pass it off to you to talk about these 2.
Yep. Thanks, Lauren. So as Lauren was saying, the targeted high use program is aimed at those Vermonters who have the highest use and the highest energy burden. So this is the most comprehensive level of services that we provide those people. And the target high use light is basically, again, based on this tiered equation where we calculate where people in the low income spectrum lie in the whole spectrum of services. It's just one step below that. Again, taking into account their energy burden, their energy use, and what we have to spend each year. So the targeted high use program in general really looks at the whole electrical use of each client. And we partner with the Vermont's Weatherization Assistance Program, or what we call WAPS. And they go into these homes and they look at everything from lighting to how they heat their water, in some cases how they cool their house, if they're running dehumidifiers, et cetera, and so forth. The age and efficiency of the appliances that they have, specifically refrigerators, freezers, clothes washers, and dryers. And based on a criteria that we utilize, if, say, for instance, some appliances that they have qualify for replacement because they have a very high energy use, and we can make an impact in those homes by replacing those with Energy Star appliances, we will do that at no cost to the customer. We will replace old incandescent lighting. we will add water conservation measures to faucets and shower heads. And these are what we call the direct install or DI measures that help in little ways, but they add up to lower the electrical use for these Vermonters. And when applicable, we will also go so far as to replace electric hot water heaters with heat pump hot water heaters. Again, if there's a good match there, there's a set of criteria that we follow to determine whether heat pump technologies are appropriate for that home. And if there's also high use of electric space heating, we will look into installing cold climate heat pumps in these homes also at no charge. Again, using a formula to determine whether it's cost effective and provides an adequate amount of energy savings. So the targeted high use program basically does the same thing, except that it isn't quite as comprehensive, and clients need to choose, rather than having a whole spectrum of appliances to replace or install just one qualifying appliance. So that could be a refrigerator or a water heater or a washer. And again, they look at the energy efficiency coaches from the weatherization programs, look at the whole spectrum of things. They look at all their lighting, their water usage, their appliances, and any other things that are creating a greater electrical load. Like, for instance, there may be a pool on the household, and there's a pool pump that uses a lot of energy. They may have a dehumidifier that they use in their basement, and we try to replace those with more efficient Energy Star appliances. And so we also look for any other opportunities that are out there, things that we call custom measures. So the coaches go out and they look, and if there is a lot of use and can't be explained through the typical types of measures or typical energy usage, then they also look to see, is there something unusual going on in this household that we could address through a custom measure? And we work very closely with the coaches to calculate the energy savings and make sure that those are cost-effective measures. So that's basically the targeted high-use program in a nutshell.
Great.
And I'll also say when Jeff Wilcox comes on shortly, that these are the same services that are provided to weatherization clients through the weatherization program.
Great. Thank you, Tim. So as Tim mentioned, our Target High Use program is our most comprehensive program. The Target High Use Light program is slightly less comprehensive. And then kind of going across the scale in terms of comprehensiveness, we have the Appliance Replacement Voucher program, as well as the Energy Savings Kit program. So the voucher program is eligible for customers who have comparatively low electric use on an annual basis, but have high energy burden. So essentially, customers receive a voucher in the mail. It's custom made out to that particular customer that they may redeem at a participating independent retailer located around the state for an eligible appliance. So the voucher itself is made out for a specific appliance or kind of options of appliances. The voucher must be used to purchase an appliance to replace an existing one. And the voucher program covers the cost of installation or delivery, installation, and haul away of the old unit. So we are looking to take, quote unquote, off the grid, the old appliance in this case. And so the eligible appliance types for this program are certainly listed here. But a couple of really cool parts about this program. One, it really empowers the customer to make their own choice. Their appliance that they're getting in replacement does need to be Energy Star qualified. But when it comes to a model, when it comes to features within that, we really want to empower customers to have the agency to make that decision themselves. Many oftentimes, energy efficiency programs targeting low-income customers, this is nationally, are very, very prescriptive about the particular type of appliance or the particular model that a low-income customer would be eligible for at no or very low cost. And this program really looks to kind of reverse that trend or kind of flip that on its head. And we also engage so far only with independent retailers, which is certainly by design and by choice for Efficiency Vermont, really working in partnership with them. The Energy Savings Kit program is as our least comprehensive program. It's for those who have low energy use and low energy burden. And customers can choose between one of two ESKs, as we call them internally at Efficiency Vermont, the Energy Saving Kits, to be mailed to their home directly. One has essentially a full array of LED light bulbs, and the other one has the same selection plus water saving devices or measures, aerators, and shower head. And so the idea here is that we're providing a diversity of services and programs so that we can both go wide. So in other words, serve a maximum number of customers we can, as also deep kind of comprehensiveness when and where we are able to. Overall perspective of the quantity of customers we serve and are looking to serve annually. What's really exciting is that present day compared to even as recently as 2019, before we added the voucher program into our portfolio, we're now serving approximately 316% greater, more customers every year, low-income customers through these 4 programs. So we went from serving about 300 customers in just targeted high use program alone in 2019 and prior to now serving approximately 1,250 customers statewide. What's really interesting and important to recognize is that is statewide. And certainly the quantity of households who are low income, as we reflect back on the earlier slides in the presentation, is far greater than that. And so we're making incremental progress. It is really important for us to have customers served statewide equitably, and also in those areas that are in most and highest need. And so that is something we balance. And again, that our consistent kind of methodology for program qualification looks to address as well. All right, so shifting now to talking about adjacent services, we wanted to make sure to provide information, links, phone numbers to other services that are available throughout the state to also help serve low-income customers and our community members that are also have even and can deliver even more impact when paired up with Efficiency Vermont services at the same time. So the first topic or a service that we're going to talk about is the Weatherization Assistance Program. I'm not sure, Jeff, if you've made it on the line,
Yep.
but if it is, great. Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Appreciate you holding out in the wings.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, feel free to have at it, and I'll advance the slides when you give me a cue.
Okay. And I just prepared a chat. I do have to get off in like less than 10 minutes. I'll send it with my contact info to everybody. But I'll be quick here. So yes, my name's Jeff Wilcox. I work for the state of Vermont, and we administer the low-income weatherization program throughout Vermont. We use the same providers the EVT does to develop, put out the programs they just talked about, the 5 weatherization agencies. So this is a picture of the 5 agencies in our state office a couple of years ago before COVID, when we could meet in person. We get together. So yeah, I'm just checking my slide here. Next slide, if you don't mind. So again, the 5 local weatherization agencies are listed here. 4 of them are community action agencies. And the 5th is NEDO, the Northeast Employment and Training Organization. They're up in the Northeast Kingdom, and they are a standalone nonprofit weatherization agency. We've had the same 4-5 providers for over 40 years, and we've got a good working relationship, and we do provide good services statewide. We've recently added a 6th WAP provider, 3E Thermal, which is part of Capstone, and they're our statewide weatherization agency. Next slide. So it's just a few key program points. You know, on average, we invest about $8,500 per home, and that's a little bit low. that should be updated by $1,000 or so after last year. We employ about 120 workers statewide at the 5 agencies in 3 at our state office, and that is a little low, right in the middle of ramping up with significant ARPA funds, the American Recovery Plan Act. I don't know if my mission statement, so our mission is, I just wanted to, I don't know if that was taken out. Well, the work we do saves clients money, improves comfort, improves indoor air quality, improves indoor health. The mission, can you go to the next slide? And I just want to come back if that's there. Nope, okay.
It's 2 back.
2 back, sorry, I missed it. Can you go back, Tim? It's important. I just can't see it. Oh, there it is, darn it. So to help low-income Vermonters save fuel and money by improving the energy efficiency and health and safety of our homes. So that's our mission. And while we do that, we save a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. But our mission, again, is right there. I'm sorry about that. I'm a little discombobulated. I'm at one of our weatherization agencies for a meeting and using one of their offices. So, all right. So we received state and federal weatherization funds totaling $18 million this year, which is a significant increase over last year, by about 30 to 40%. The program exists in every state and has been in existence since the late 1970s when created by the Department of Energy. And actually it's 57 states and territories. So we've got a really good network. So the scope of work starts with efficiency coaching, which is a really critical piece that we implemented about 8 to 10 years ago. It's the first step in weatherization once a client's eligible, and the coaches go in and meet with the client, talk about energy conservation, do the LEAP, the Efficiency Vermont electrical efficiency scope of work while they're there, explain what weatherization's about, talk about how to get the most out of the weatherization measures we install. And the next step's an energy audit, which determines what's the cost-effective or most beneficial measures we can install in a home, which include installation of cellulose insulation, spray foam, rigid foam, along with comprehensive air sealing at the top and bottom of the building to start. Combustion appliances, every combustion appliance in a low-income weatherization client's home is evaluated for safety and efficiency, and any repairs are taken care of before we do any work. We do no harm first. We install and improve indoor air quality, bathroom and kitchen ventilation to ASHRAE standards. Do a lot of ductwork improvements if there's a hot air furnace in the home. Install safety devices and structural repairs. I think we downplayed it a little bit in this bullet. We're doing more and more home repairs and vermiculite remediation to ensure we have 0 deferrals is our policy. It may not be 100% achievable, but we don't want to leave folks behind because they typically need the most work and benefits from weatherization. So the process, I kind of got into that already, but starts with the efficiency coaching. Then comprehensive energy audit is a separate visit after the coaching. We determine the scope of work, what's going to give the big bang for the buck and get really good energy savings, as well as improve the health and safety of the home. That's done by modeling through a DOE approved energy modeling tool. And then our agencies all have in-house crews that go out and install the insulation and air sealing and do a lot of the other stuff like the bathroom fans and the ductwork. And each agency is hiring right now. I put in the chat, our website, which is coming up, is if you know anyone in your town or your family that's looking for a really good career, we're hiring. And the final step in the process is a thorough quality assurance and quality control inspection by each agency before they report their jobs complete to our state office. They need to have a separate visit and deem all the measures were installed properly. And then our state office goes out and inspects 10% of those after they report to us. Quality control, quality insurance is very important for energy efficiency work. If you don't do it correctly, you don't get the savings, you don't get the benefits, and you can actually do more harm than good. Next slide, please. So eligibility, that's determined. We have 2 eligibility guidelines, whether it's state or federal funded makes the determination, but it's 80% of median income or 200% of federal poverty limit. We prioritize those when we have a wait list. We prioritize those at the lower income levels. Fuel assistance is an auto qualifier, as well as supplemental security income. And that's our website right there that can provide a lot of information, links to the 5 agencies to apply for services, and also contacts if anyone's looking for employment. Next
Great.
slide. Is that it?
Jeff, I think that was all we had
Okay.
you for.
All right.
But it sounds
Sorry,
like
I went so fast.
No, that was fantastic. Thank you for taking the time. You did put your contact information in the chat. It sounds like certainly for questions about the program, but as Jeff said, the weatherization agencies are also hiring. So please put out the good word so we can help serve more customers who qualify in the state.
Yep. Well, thanks Lauren and Tim and everyone.
Yep. Thanks,
Great.
Jeff, for joining. We know we have a meeting to run to.
Okay.
Just one last thing I wanted to chime in on to follow on what Jeff was talking about in terms of doing the quality control inspections at the end. That also includes making sure that that the home is safe before we leave, particularly in terms of combustion appliances. So there's a process that the inspector does to make sure, because when you weatherize a home, you're making it more airtight. And if you have combustion appliances that get their combustion air from inside the home, you potentially could raise the risk of carbon monoxide issues and poor combustion in those appliances. And that's something for all of you to really keep in mind as people who advocate for this work, is to whether that work is being done through a weatherization assistance program or through another contractor, to make sure that once the work is done, that the home is safe, particularly in terms of combustion appliances.
Great.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right, Tim, take it away.
Yep. So again, sort of jumping on, leapfrogging from where what Jeff was talking about. We also just wanted to let you know about other programs that are available to folks, again, with high energy burdens. The most obvious of which is the Seasonal Fuel Assistance Program, which is a federally funded, or LIHEAP, the Low Income Heating Assistance Program. And eligibility basically is 185% of the federal poverty level. And folks can apply for fuel assistance during the heating season, which goes from November to May of every year. And they can apply online at the DCF web address listed here, or by phone at the 800 number. Or they can apply in person at one of the economic services divisions, which are scattered all over the state. There's more than a dozen of those, and those are listed at this link that we have listed here. So it's on the slide deck for you to reference.
Tim, I don't want to interrupt, but it is 1 o'clock and we have a lot of questions. So I don't know if we can jump through just some of this kind of quickly, at least put it up, and then get to some of these questions, because I would love to have time to address some of them.
Yep. Okay. So here's a couple of more. Through Green Mountain Power and Vermont Gas, they offer discounts to income eligible customers. You can go to their websites. And also very critical this time of year is the Crisis Fuel Program. So for income eligible clients whose heating systems fail in the middle of the winter, this program is in place to either repair or replace those heating systems. This is administered through the community action agencies, the 5 across the state that are also connected to the weatherization programs. So they apply through community action, and then the actual services are provided through the weatherization assistance program. So they'll get somebody out once they have qualified and applied for the program. The WAPs are try to get somebody out there within a few hours, within 6 hours, but usually it happens much quicker than that, to repair or replace that system. So this is a very critical program, and it's a very active and highly used program in the state. Again, really quickly, home repair services. The Weatherization Assistance Program has limited repairs that relate specifically to weatherization only. So anything that they need to do to repair the home to allow for weatherization. And I bring this up because I know that they get a lot of calls that people say, "Hey, I hear you'll come and replace my windows and my leaky roof for for nothing." And that's partially true, but it has to be related to being able to do the weatherization measures. So leaky roof, vermiculite, which is an asbestos-containing insulation that's kind of ubiquitous through the whole state and very expensive to remediate. So there is some funding available through the WAPs for that. A really good resource is Vermont 211, and you can explore the database, or people can actually call 211 and they will help them to find services for home repairs. They're limited, but these are just a few of the services available through that directory. So you can read these on your own, and I think that's the last slide.
Yes, you've got it, Tim.
Okay.
Great. And I will connect with Becca afterwards, but my hope is that we can pass along the slide deck in PDF form, which would make all of the links that we have referenced and put into the slide deck clickable for you all. All right. So Michelle, if you could take just a minute or two before we get to questions, and certainly any discussion on Efficiency Vermont resources for energy committees.
Happy to.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. So hopefully everyone in the Energy Committee is aware that Efficiency Vermont has 3 staff members dedicated. I myself lead this team, but I also serve energy committees in a certain handful of counties. Brad Long, myself, and Becca White serve as community managers, which means we do everything from our targeted community program to presentations to supporting energy committees and the work you want to do in your community. We break the state up into 3 areas, mostly based on where we live, to make sure that we're saving on travel time when we could be in person. So Brad covers Washington, Addison, Rutland, and Lamoille. I'm Chittenden in Franklin, Grand Isle, Orleans, and Essex. And then Becca's kind of like in the southern part of the state in Bending, Windham, Windsor, and Orange. You can go to the next slide. So I put our email in this presentation. We'd love to work with energy committees on trying to do outreach out to low income. I know this is of interest to a lot of energy committees. As Lauren hopefully drove home in her presentation, this is a very complicated issue, and we have to be aware of the best way to reach out to people. I see a lot of questions in the chat of what's the best way to reach out to this demographic, how does EVT do it, that sort of thing, which I'm happy to talk more about. But something we are always cognizant of at Efficiency Vermont is making sure we time outreach alongside the resources available in the state, because it's really difficult when reaching low-income individuals is very difficult, and getting their attention can be very difficult, as some of you mentioned in the chat. And so we never want to do outreach when, say, the weatherization agencies are totally overwhelmed, or Efficiency Vermont is very overwhelmed, or doesn't have budget that year to address something that maybe we're promoting, like a program somewhat rolling down instead of rolling up. So I find it important that you guys reach out to us first to just check in, where are resources? What are we promoting right now? What can people tap into to make sure that the services that the individuals may be tapping into are available and ready for their use? So again, here are our contact information. If you want to do this type of outreach, I would suggest you reach out to us and have that conversation. We can dive into tactics, but I actually think it's better to do on a more individual level, because it depends totally on where you live and your type of resources in your community, the type of broadband access, if you have different services, those sorts of things. So I would encourage us to not talk so broadly about statewide, but rather focus on your community. If you're like, shoot, I forget who covers my territory, I don't remember the email, you always can just go to the contact page at Efficiency Vermont, fill out this quick little form, and they'll make sure to send you over to the right person. And that's it.
Great, thank you, Michelle. So that actually
Michelle.
wraps up. So that wraps up kind of the content of what we were hoping to dive into today. And I've been certainly seeing the really robust chat. And so really happy to field any questions. If there certainly is discussion, I'm gonna go ahead and stop sharing my screen. But certainly, Michelle, if you can begin to call out any questions that maybe the three of us can answer in tandem, that'd be great.
Yeah, so there's a lot of questions. We're gonna do our best in the next 20 minutes. I've tried to bucket some things. The first bucket, I think people have a lot of question on, are mobile homes. Can mobile home owners access all these programs? Are there special programs for them? And also, do we have a sense of how they fit into some of this demographic data that you presented in the beginning?
Great question. So mobile home residents are eligible for all of the Efficiency Vermont programs that we discussed today. There are sometimes, specifically for the programs where the weatherization agencies are the ones who are delivering that service on behalf of Efficiency Vermont, some challenges that the agencies need to, but also know how to address, particular to that housing stock. So for example, a heat pump hot water heater in the closet where the water heater goes in a mobile home, considerations around that. The feasibility of a cold climate heat pump in a mobile home, special considerations around that. But in terms of whether or not to advise or to recommend that a mobile home resident contact Efficiency Vermont to receive and qualify for services, there should be no hesitation whatsoever. In terms of kind of how folks fall in the demographic, I didn't include this, but mobile home residents have what I would call one of those compounded forms of burden, where their energy burden typically is substantially higher, given the leaky housing stock, the inefficiency of appliances, particularly in those mobile homes, energy burden that much higher. And when we talk about disparity, that much greater in terms of the number of times greater than average.
Great. I would say the next questions were around renters and what type of programs we provide them. I will just start off by saying that we could do an entire presentation like this on renters and landlords. But Lauren, I don't know if you want to provide just some high level bullets on that side of things.
Yeah, Michelle's not lying. And certainly we would be happy to do a part 2 at some point, specifically about not just addressing renters and engaging with them and how to reach them, but what are the services and how are they different and how are they the same? So Efficiency Vermont, of the 4 programs that Tim and I talked about today, renters are eligible for target high use and target high use site. We presently have not been able to make the appliance replacement voucher program accessible to renters, and that is because of the tension around Efficiency Vermont having to certify or confirm ownership of the appliance that the renter wants replaced. So that's just kind of a tricky thing and addresses what we call the split incentive. So when reaching renters and serving renters with energy efficiency programs, the challenge is often that the thing that the item, the measure that Efficiency Vermont is looking to help address is often not owned by the renter, him or her or themselves, but it is often the cost of that as in terms of a utility bill that the renter is paying. So how do we incentivize the property owner to upgrade, replace the thing, even if the benefit of that thing is being felt by the renter, not the property owner? And so a lot of our programs designed at renters separately from the ones that we've mentioned today really kind of hit home at just that. We have a rental property free products program, one program or site that's specifically for renters, one site that's specifically for landlords. Those are both coming online statewide in the next number of weeks. We'll be sure through Michelle or the rest of our team to distribute what those links are. We also work with property owners in a number of our other programs. Jeff Wilcox mentioned before 3E Thermal as the state's newest weatherization entity or program. They serve multifamily properties specifically. Efficiency Vermont also works with property owners through 3E Thermal to perform deep retrofits, which leverage Efficiency Vermont incentives on both thermal scopes of work as well as electrical scopes of work. So if you are talking to or working with or outreaching to property owners, there's an abundance of stuff that Efficiency Vermont can serve. And the idea is the trickle-down effect and impact of that work is designed to really help renters, recognizing that approximately 78% of Vermont's renters are low income. It ties in really well with all of the kind of levers and desired outcomes that we've been talking about today.
Yep. And I'll just add that those same mobile home owners and renters are also eligible for the weatherization services, obviously with the permission of the property owners.
Great. Lots of questions in the chat when Jeff was talking, so apologize if you can't answer this, but people are curious about the current capacity and wait time for the weatherization agencies.
Yep. Well, the wait times used to be a lot longer. The weatherization programs, of which I used to work for before I came here to Efficiency Vermont, have ramped up their capacity. There also, as Jeff mentioned, there have been increases in their funding over the last few years so they can serve more people and get to them more quickly. So I know when I had joined on to weatherization, the weatherization program about 8 years ago, we had upwards of a 1.5 to 2 year waiting period, and that has shortened considerably since then. I don't know that anybody is waiting any more than a year at this point, and some, depending on their priority in the weatherization queue, as it were, they have a way of prioritizing those who need weatherization services the most when they apply. This is based on an algorithm. It's not just a random selective process, but based on a formula that they use to make sure that the weatherization services are delivered to those who really need it. Some of those people, from the time they apply, it may be just a couple of months before they see the energy coach and the energy auditors at their doorstep.
I think to piggyback on what Tim said, I think there have been fluctuations over the years in terms of what that wait time looks like. And so if there is hesitancy to recommend or refer somebody to a weatherization agency, as Tim is saying, I think now is a great time to do so. On account of two things: increased capacity and increased funding coming from the federal government as well as the state government means that the weatherization agencies have more budget to deliver more services to more homes. And so that's a great thing that we all want customers to be taking advantage of. One key thing is that Efficiency Vermont, while we do work very, very closely in partnership, and we have for years with the weatherization agencies, we are not privy or part of the application process for weatherization assistance, for the weatherization assistance program. And so the best place to direct a customer or somebody who you're talking to who's interested or you think might qualify is to either the website or to the phone number for their agency given territory. Because unfortunately, Efficiency Vermont's customer service won't have insight into the application process or where somebody is in that queue that Tim was just talking about.
And that's where they will direct them to, is directly to the weatherization agencies. So, and it's important to just communicate to anyone who's applying, you know, it is not, even if they have a high priority listing, it's not a process that happens overnight. It takes several months to get through the entire weatherization process, from coaching all the way through quality control. But it's worth the wait. It can make a huge impact for people.
Thanks, everyone. Another question, which I thought might be good to address here, is people are wondering if all these services are listed out on the Efficiency Vermont website, or is there a place where people can direct people to learn about all these different programs?
Great question. We do have a section of our website that does describe these programs in broad strokes. There's also that graphic that has like the chart with the 4 circles that shows kind of the increasing level of comprehensiveness depending on one's energy impact, again, which is a factor of usage and energy burden, and a description of the programs largely. One of the things we do want to be really conscious of is in how we describe the range of services that a customer may be eligible for, because we don't want to inadvertently set unrealistic expectations based on how someone will qualify once they contact Efficiency Vermont. So kind of the first process when someone calls Efficiency Vermont and either directly expresses interest in our income qualified programs or infers that they may be eligible is to run that person through that qualification process, first determine income eligibility as low income, and then which of those 4 programs they qualify for. So while the website is a good tool, and we will absolutely after today pass along those direct web links that you can certainly pass along, what I would suggest as the first or maybe the ideal entry point for somebody would be to contact customer support so that there is that description of what the programs are, but also that right sizing of which program someone would be connected with based on their actual need.
Great. And again, I think that is also why it's helpful if you guys are planning on doing outreach for your communities, please reach out to your corresponding community manager, Brad, myself, or Becca, to just let us know what type of outreach you're doing and possibly even what language you plan on using, just so we make sure it's accurate. Again, like at least from doing this work on the ground, the hardest thing is when someone thinks they qualify for something and they don't, and we don't want to set anyone up for frustration or miss expectations there. Another question that I think will be pretty quick to answer. People want to know for the target high use programs, if a customer must surrender old appliances when a new appliance is installed, or if they can keep it as backup.
Nope. No, those appliances are removed from the premises and the new appliances put in. It would really be kind of counterproductive to have those appliances remain on site. So those are removed by the distributors that are delivering the new appliances.
Great. I want to address, there's a lot of data related questions in the chat about people's access, about people's towns accessing these services and that kind of stuff. I honestly, off the top of my head, we do have a report that we provide to energy committees on our different programs. I can't actually remember off the top of my head, Lauren, I don't know if you remember in that report, which low income programs are able to be described in there or not, but I'm happy to address that in the follow-up email if you don't remember off the top of your head, Lauren.
Yeah, so is the question what percentage of participation in these programs by town or by town energy committee area? Yeah. I don't off the top of my head know, but I do think that that's something that would be really important to pass along. The data point that I would love to be adjacent to it, right, is percent participation next to percent of the population that's eligible, right? Because I think that one of the really critical pieces are, to what extent are we all in this work meeting the available need and the expressed need, and is there a gap? And if there is a gap, how big is that gap? And how can we work collectively and in partnership to help address that part too? So in other words, who is being left behind, who is not being reached, and how can we work to solve that?
Yeah, and off that data question, I've gotten a few direct messages as well as questions in the chat asking if we have the ability to provide energy committees with information to allow them to do outreach to low income individuals, such as, you know, how to reach those individuals and those sorts of things.
Great question. So Efficiency Vermont doesn't actually itself have that from a data-driven perspective. We don't collect income data from customers, and we don't collect in aggregate income data And the only time we're asking for that is through the process of program qualification. So that's when we are in possession, so to speak, by phone of that information. And so part of the challenge then becomes, how do you know how to identify the audience you want to reach and speak to, recognizing that there are unique challenges to accessing information, be it computer technology at home, internet connection, whatever it might be. We can, and Michelle, maybe you want to speak to this as well, work together with you through the community managers to equip you all with information, kind of a toolkit of sorts of like how to disseminate information that may reach low-income customers in the places where they congregate, where they meet, the information access points that are most common. So certainly there are kind of some useful tactics there that we'd be more than happy to partner with you all on in that way. By and large, one of the kind of most, I would say, fruitful approaches that Efficiency Vermont has taken is to kind of cast a wide net and communicate a message that indicates that customers who income qualify or who are income eligible may be eligible for a range of services at no or very low cost. And that the purpose of those programs is to address high energy costs and address affordability from an energy efficiency perspective. And what we've found is that that message resonates most strongly with those who actually do qualify for the program. And through encouraging folks to then contact Efficiency Vermont's customer support to determine eligibility, it, as Michelle was just saying, sets people up for success in terms of expectation and reality.
Yep, and as Lauren alluded to, we are working right now on a toolkit, which will have boilerplate language for energy committees to tap into to try to reach this. But as Lauren mentioned, I will reiterate, for me on the ground, the most effective way to usually reach people is to work through groups that they are already connecting with. Low-income individuals are usually very overwhelmed, and trying to provide them with another service or another group, or as you all can see, a lot of this information is super complicated. So to try to communicate all that can be super hard. But working through groups that they're already going to, that they're already working with, can be super helpful. So local food shelves, if there's low-income daycare, if there's a library, that tends to be a great place to connect with low-income individuals, that sort of thing. So really try to find the groups and organizations already targeting the groups you guys are hoping to work with, and build relationships with them to then push the information out. Trying to work directly with individuals in this category can be really difficult because they already are so overwhelmed. Sorry, I started talking and then got lost track of all of the questions. I will say apologize, you guys. Let's see. So we did renters, we did mobile home. There's a lot of questions about how we do outreach, Lauren. How do people find out about this program? How are people actually tapping into our resources?
Great question. There has been a standard bearing approach, and then there are some new tactics that we are adding into the mix. So the standing bearer approach is that we send out a blanket letter in the mail to likely income eligible folks off of a list that Efficiency Vermont purchases. And that letter basically is all said and done relatively short. But at the end of the day, describes the kind of very low to no cost programs that a customer may qualify for if they are income eligible, and to invite them and encourage them to contact Efficiency Vermont to see if they qualify and then proceed from there. Generally speaking, historically, we have had an incredibly robust response to that letter. The number I'm about to give you may sound very, very low and abysmal, but it's typically around 7%. But for context, typically for kind of cold call version of letter outreach, market standards more around 1%. So Efficiency Vermont has an incredible response rate typically to that letter outreach. And that's how we've historically kind of filled our available pipeline, if you will, of services. Knowing that we have ramped up and don't intend on backing down for the both diversity of programs we offer, as well as the quantity of people we're looking to serve each year through these programs, we're now also expanding the marketing and outreach tactics. That includes social media, that we work hand in hand with our marketing department to develop the language and the framing for that. We also are working with some of our utility partners around promotion to their customers, recognizing that there's mutual benefit in reaching customers in that way. Michelle was talking about low-income households are often overwhelmed. And so one of the best practices that we employ is leveraging partners who are already, quote unquote, in customers' homes. So whether that's a bill that's already arriving in your mailbox, or whether that's working through a partner like the Weatherization Assistance Program to deliver the services that we're funding, working with partners is certainly a best practice that we employ to also get folks in the door, so to speak.
Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
I just want to address, there's a handful of comments about how Efficiency Vermont used to train energy committees to go into people's homes to kind of assess if they would be good at qualifying for some of these programs. I will say that we have stopped that program in recent years, mainly due to some quality issues that we found in those who we were training, as well as some legal considerations about having to cover non-Efficiency Vermont employees going into people's homes. Obviously, there can be a lot of health and safety concerns with sending a non-employee into people's homes. So from a legal safety standpoint, particularly with what's happening with COVID, it's just not something that we reasonably can do anymore. So I apologize for that. I know it was a program a lot of people loved, but it's just not something that we can support anymore. We have 2 minutes. This has been a whirlwind. I'm so impressed by the amount of people who are here and the number of people who have asked really important questions. I am so honored to work with energy committees on a daily basis. Your passion is incredible, and we are so lucky to have so many people in our state who care this much to show up for a 90-minute webinar on how to support low-income individuals on reducing their energy burden. So I just want to make sure I say that as a closing remark. I know this work is hard. I know it is frustrating. It can feel insurmountable, the complexity to all of it. But we are beyond lucky to be in this state with so many people who care so much. And hopefully that's a nice note to end things, unless Lauren and Tim have anything else to add. That was a great last word, yeah.
Yes, and I just wanted to say, feel free to reach out to Michelle, myself, or Lauren if there's any way we can help you. If you have questions about any of our programs, we're here to partner with you. And to help you get the word out, and also to make sure that the word you're getting out is accurate and that the right information is getting disseminated to the people who need it.
For sure. Yes, echo Tim and Michelle, Becca, and folks, thank you so much for hosting us. And we'd welcome further and ongoing conversation. We want to be helpful, useful, and I think together deliver really, really amazing impact.